The neutral star system of Vera 9 was not beautiful in the usual way. It had no green planets, no oceans, and no gentle suns. What it had was space enough for 100 fleets to gather without danger. And that was why it was chosen as the meeting place of 5 powerful empires. The system's star was pale and cold, shining weakly over broken asteroids that drifted like silent guards. Around one such asteroid, a massive station hung suspended. Its shining walls glowed with light, and banners of many colors floated in artificial gravity around it. This station was called the Hall of Concord, though many who came here thought of it less as a hall of peace and more as a hall of pride. For today, 5 of the most powerful alien civilizations had gathered. Their leaders were not kings or emperors but admirals, commanders of their most feared warships. They came to display their strength, to remind each other that no empire could easily be challenged. The first to arrive was the Thrix Dominion. Their ships looked alive, and in truth they were. Great wings of flesh and crystal stretched out like enormous sea creatures swimming in space. Their flagship, the Eternal Growth, pulsed with inner light, its surface rippling as if it breathed. The Thrix were insectoid in form, with shimmering carapaces that shifted colors as they moved. Admiral Xyrix, tall and sharp, stepped onto the station floor, his voice echoing like the clicking of stones. "We are the Thrix. Our ships heal themselves. What others lose, we grow back. No storm, no battle can end us." Soon after came the Kalor Dominion. Their ships were dark, angular things covered in glowing blue lines like veins of fire. Their flagship, the Sunpiercer, carried weapons that blazed like miniature stars. The Kalor were tall and reptilian, their scales bright like polished gems. Admiral Sarak raised her clawed hand and spoke proudly. "We do not waste time with tricks of flesh. We carry the burning core of suns. One shot and worlds fall silent." The Third Fleet belonged to the Druv Collective. Their ships were hard to see, for they bent the light around them, shimmering in and out of sight. The flagship, Veil of Shadows, appeared only when its commander wished it. The Druv themselves were soft-skinned and pale, their eyes completely black, their voices like whispers in a cave. Admiral Ellen, calm but sharp-tongued, declared, "We do not fight what we cannot see, and no one can see us. Victory belongs to the unseen hand." The Cyrath Confederacy entered next. Their fleet was strange, heavy with machines that twisted gravity itself. The flagship, Weight of Ages, carried engines that bent moons into dust. The Cyrath were slender beings with long limbs and crystal crowns that grew naturally from their heads. Admiral Tyrillin stepped forward, his words smooth as liquid. "Why waste energy on beams or claws? We command the very pull of the stars. With a gesture, we crush fleets without firing a shot." Finally came the Volnari hierarchy, loud and proud. Their ships were the largest, each a floating mountain of metal, bristling with cannons. Their flagship, Iron Will, stretched for kilometers, a city of weapons. The Volnari were broad and strong, with bronze-colored skin and eyes like burning coals. Admiral Varkesh laughed as he entered, his voice booming. "Your tricks amuse me. Flesh that grows, lights that blind, shadows that hide, or gravity that bends. Yet none can match the strength of iron. 1,000 guns speak louder than your whispers. The hierarchy rules through firepower, and none can stand before us." The 5 admirals gathered in the central chamber of the hall. Around them, envoys and minor delegates watched with unease, for the pride of great powers often carried danger. Each admiral spoke of their victories, telling stories of enemies defeated and systems conquered. Admiral Xyrix told of how the Thrix fleet had survived a nova star, their living ships regrowing wings and organs even as fire tried to consume them. Admiral Sarak spoke of a rebel world burned to ash by a single beam, its surface turned to glass under Kalor power. Admiral Ellen whispered of a war fought where the enemy never saw a single Druv ship, only sudden destruction from the dark. Admiral Tyrallin described moons crushed to powder, their fragments dragged into suns by Sirath gravity. Admiral Varkesh laughed at them all, boasting of the hierarchy's siege of a rival empire, where thousands of cannons fired until night became day, and the enemy surrendered in fear, the chamber filled with the weight of their words. Their pride was heavy, their certainty unshaken. Yet there was one empty seat at the table, for the summit had been called for 6 powers. 5 were here. The 6th was humanity. The aliens had expected humans to arrive late. Many whispered that perhaps they would not arrive at all. To most in the galaxy, Earth was a small and unremarkable world. Humans had no vast empire, no ancient fleets, no grand monuments. They had spread to only a handful of stars, building colonies with quiet effort. Some said they were still too young to stand beside the great empires. Why were they even invited? Admiral Varkesh said with a grin, his teeth sharp and bright. Do they think their small ships belong here among true powers? Admiral Sarek let out a hissing laugh. Perhaps they come to ask for protection. Perhaps they will choose which of us they beg to serve, Admiral Ellen whispered. Or perhaps they will hide, knowing shame. Only Admiral Xyrix was silent, though his carapace shifted in slow colors that showed quiet amusement. The chamber lights flickered then, a sign of a ship arriving through the station's gates. Delegates turned and the admirals straightened. At last the human envoy had come. A small ship drifted into the docking bay. It was not grand, not bright, not armed with 1,000 weapons. It was simple, gray with clean lines and no decoration. From it stepped a single figure, a man in a dark uniform, tall but not imposing, his hair touched with gray at the edges. He walked with calm steps, neither proud nor fearful. He was Commander Elias Rourke, representative of Earth. The 5 admirals stared. He had no guards, no escorts, no show of power. Only a quiet presence, a calm gaze. You are late, Admiral Tiralan said smoothly, his crystal crown catching the light. Rourke inclined his head slightly. I am here now. Humanity thanks you for your patience. Varkesh laughed, the sound echoing through the hall. This is your representative? A single man with no fleet behind him? Do humans believe this is a gathering of diplomats and not of strength? The others smiled, each in their own way. Rourke looked at them all, his voice even, his words simple. Strength has many forms. Humanity does not come to boast. We come to listen. His calmness unsettled some of the lesser delegates, but the admirals only smiled wider. They saw his humility as weakness, his patience as fear. Admiral Sarek leaned closer, her scales glinting. Tell us, human, what do you call your greatest warship? What power can it show beside ours? The hall grew quiet, waiting. Rourke's eyes met hers without hesitation. Our battleships do not compete in tournaments of pride, he said softly. They are built for when there is no other choice. A pause filled the chamber. Then laughter erupted. The 5 admirals laughed together, their voices rising like a storm. No other choice? Varkesh roared. A fine excuse for having nothing to show. Perhaps they fear to reveal weakness, Ellen whispered. Or perhaps they dream of strength they do not have. Tiralan said with a thin smile. Rourke stood silent as they laughed. His hands rested calmly behind his back, his face unreadable. To the crowd, it seemed the matter was finished. Humanity had spoken, and the words were nothing but mist beside the heavy claims of the great powers. But though they laughed, though they mocked, a few in the hall felt a strange unease. For there was no fear in the human's voice, no shame in his posture. He spoke as if his words were truth, as if one day they would understand what he meant. The laughter of the 5 admirals echoed through the great chamber of the Hall of Concord. Their pride filled the air like heavy smoke. To them, Commander Elias Rourke's calm words sounded weak, almost comical. Yet when their laughter faded, the silence that followed was strangely uneasy. Rourke had not argued, had not shouted, had not even lowered his gaze. He had simply stood there, steady as stone, and let their words fall around him without weight. It unsettled some of the minor delegates. Many were used to leaders who defended their pride with passion. But this human stood as if pride itself was unnecessary. Admiral Xyrix, the Thrix commander, studied him closely. Xyrix's carapace shifted in slow waves of green and gold, a silent language among his kind. A curious thing, Xyrix clicked softly, his voice like stones tapping against each other. Most who come here speak of glory, yet you do not. Rourke inclined his head slightly. Humanity has no need to declare victories. We have none to offer. Varkesh the Volnari burst into booming laughter again. At least he admits it. No victories, no triumphs, no fleets worthy of telling. And yet they dare to sit among us. Admiral Tiralan of the Cyrath leaned forward, his long limbs folding gracefully. His crystal crown glittered in the chamber light. You say you have no victories, yet you still build battleships? Tell me, human, for what do you prepare them if not conquest? Rourke's voice was calm. For survival. The word fell like a stone into still water. Some of the delegates frowned. To survive was natural, yet the way Rourke said it carried weight. The great empires built fleets for conquest, for domination, for deterrence. Few spoke of survival. Few imagined needing such a thing. Admiral Ellen of the Drove tilted her head. Her black eyes reflected no light. You speak as if enemies wait for you in every shadow. Rourke's lips curved in the faintest of smiles. Perhaps shadows are more common where we walk. The admirals exchanged glances. None pressed further, for pride told them there was no need to question a species so small. Instead, Admiral Sarak flicked her jeweled claws and spoke with bright confidence. Words are wind. This summit was not called for talk alone. It was called for proof. Each of us will show our strength, and all will see who commands the true power of the stars. The other admirals nodded in agreement. They had come to boast, but also to compete. Pride demanded display, and display demanded judgment. A voice rose from the far end of the chamber. It was Speaker Avanar, master of the Hall of Concord. The speaker was of the neutral race that kept the station alive, a being whose skin shimmered silver like mercury. His voice was soft, yet carried to every corner of the chamber. It is agreed. Each empire shall present its fleet in the void of Vera 9. Their greatest ship shall demonstrate its power. All who watch will judge. This is the will of the conquered. The hall murmured with approval. Speaker Avanar then turned toward Rourke. And humanity? Will you bring a ship to the field? Every eye turned to the human. For a moment, Rourke was silent. His hands rested calmly behind his back. Finally, he said, "If it is required, we will show what we have." The admirals smirked. They imagined some small frigate, perhaps a cruiser at best, brought forward in desperation. Nothing could compare to their dreadnoughts or living fleets. Then it is decided, said Speaker Avanar. At the rise of Vera's pale star, the demonstrations shall begin. The summit broke into smaller gatherings. Admirals and delegates moved through the vast halls of the station, their voices rising in pride and excitement. Everywhere, whispers followed the human. Why did they come? Some asked. They cannot hope to compete, others said. Perhaps they wish to learn from us. Perhaps they wish to borrow our strength. Rourke walked among them in silence. He did not defend, he did not argue. His steps were steady, his gaze calm. One young envoy from a minor world, curious and unafraid, approached him. She was small, with pale skin and golden eyes, belonging to a race that lived on desert moons. She bowed slightly and asked, "Commander, why do you not boast like the others? Why do you not tell stories of Earth?" Rourke paused. For a moment his expression softened. "Stories are precious," he said quietly. "But sometimes it is better to let others tell them for you." The envoy tilted her head, confused but intrigued. "Do you truly believe your ships can stand against theirs?" Rourke met her gaze. His eyes were steady, not arrogant, not fearful. "They will see soon enough." She shivered, though the air was warm. There was something in his voice that made her believe, though she could not explain why. In the private chamber of the admirals, the mood was different. Admiral Varkesh poured himself a drink of bright liquid fire, laughing as he spoke. "This summit will end with our dominance confirmed. The Volnari dreadnought will outshine them all. Let the others display their tricks. True power lies in iron and fire." Admiral Sarak smiled coldly. "We shall see. The calor beams burn hotter than any fire. No ship survives our sun lances." Admiral Tiralen leaned back, his long fingers tapping on the arm of his seat. "All of you waste energy. Why burn, why strike, why shoot, when gravity itself obeys our command? One pull and fleets collapse like sand." Admiral Ellen's whisper slid through the room. "You forget that what cannot be seen cannot be fought. What is a dreadnought when it is blind? What is a sun lance when it strikes empty space?" Admiral Xyrix clicked his mandibles slowly. His carapace shimmered in curious colors. "Pride blinds as much as shadow. Yet perhaps pride is the reason we are here. Without it, what need is there to show strength?" The admirals exchanged knowing looks. Each believed their fleet would stand tallest. Each believed their empire unmatched. Of humanity they did not speak long. To them, Earth was an afterthought. The night cycle passed on the station. Delegates rested, ships prepared, and the hall grew quiet. Yet in the docking bay, one ship remained strangely still, the small human vessel. Inside it, Commander Rourke stood alone by a wide window, gazing out at the starfield of Vera 9. His reflection stared back at him, a man of ordinary height, with worn features and gray at his temples. Nothing about him looked extraordinary, but his eyes held the weight of 1,000 unspoken stories. He whispered softly, though no one was there to hear. Tomorrow they will see, and perhaps they will finally understand. The next day, as the pale star of Vera rose, the fleets gathered in the open void, one by one. The 5 great empires prepared their demonstrations. The Thrix bioships stretched their living wings, glowing with organic light. The Kalor dreadnoughts charged their sun lances until fire danced across their hulls. The Druv vessels shimmered in and out of sight, half there and half not. The Sarath cruisers activated gravity engines that bent the light of stars. The Volnari warships lined up in perfect formation, their guns shining like silver teeth. The void of Vera 9 became a gallery of power. The admirals stood tall, their pride ready to be confirmed before all. And apart from them, the human ship waited, small and unassuming, silent as a shadow. No one cheered for it. No one expected anything from it. Most forgot it was even there. But Commander Elias Rourke stood aboard it, calm as ever, watching. The demonstrations were about to begin, and the galaxy would soon discover that Earth had been underestimated. The pale star of Vera rose slowly, its weak light spreading across the empty system. Around the Hall of Concord, fleets of warships took their places, forming a vast circle in the silent void. For the first time in many centuries, 5 great powers of the galaxy gathered in one place, each ready to prove its might before the others. Their admirals stood in the viewing chamber of the station, tall and proud, their eyes glowing with confidence. Commander Elias Rourke stood among them, quiet as always. His human vessel floated at the edge of the gathering, small and unnoticed, a shadow beside giants. Speaker Avanar, shining like liquid silver, raised his voice so that it filled the chamber. By the agreement of the Concord, each empire shall now display the power of its fleet. Let all watch. Let all bear witness. Today, strength will speak. The admirals nodded. The order was set. The Thrix would go first. The Thrix display in the void. The Thrix bioships spread their wings. They looked like living creatures, vast as cities with translucent membranes that glowed with green and blue light. Their flagship, the Eternal Growth, pulsed like a beating heart, every ripple across its hull a sign of life. Admiral Xerix raised his arms, his carapace flashing gold. Life endures. Life always endures. At his signal, the Thrix fleet began its display. A group of smaller living ships broke off and struck the flagship with bright beams of energy, tearing great holes through its wings. Gas and fluid spilled into space, and for a moment it looked as if the flagship would collapse. But then, slowly, the wounds began to close. Flesh regrew. Wings unfolded again. The holes sealed, leaving only faint scars that disappeared within minutes. Delegates gasped. Even among the powerful empires, the ability of the Thrix to heal their ships was astonishing. Others waste resources repairing their fleets, Xerix said proudly. We do not repair. We regrow, we do not end. We are eternal. The chamber filled with murmurs of approval. Even Admiral Varkesh, loud and dismissive, gave a small nod of respect. Rourke stood silent, watching with calm eyes. The Kalor display. Now it was the Kalor Dominion's turn. Their flagship, the Sun-Piercer, floated forward, its hull glowing with blue lines of fire. Admiral Sarak stretched her tall form, her jeweled scales glittering under the chamber lights. Life may heal, she said coldly. But what is life before the burning core of a star? On her command, the Sun-Piercer turned its lance toward a drifting asteroid the size of a small moon. Energy built at its core, a bright ball of light growing hotter and hotter until it shone brighter than the pale sun of Vera itself. Then it fired. A stream of plasma burst forth, striking the asteroid with such force that its surface melted instantly. The asteroid glowed red, then white, then broke apart in a shower of glass-like fragments that spun into the void. Delegates shielded their eyes from the brightness. The asteroid was gone, reduced to drifting shards in seconds. Admiral Sarak's voice carried clear and sharp. Nothing survives the fire of Kalor. Not stone, not steel, not even time. Whispers of awe spread through the chamber. The Kalor weapons were feared across the galaxy, and now all had seen why. Again, Rourke stood silent. The Druv display. The chamber grew dim as the Druv collective prepared. Their ships were already half hidden, fading in and out like mist. Admiral Ellen's voice, soft and haunting, drifted across the hall. Power is not always fire. Sometimes power is absence. Sometimes victory belongs to the one who is never seen. The veil of shadows, their flagship, shimmered until it was gone. Not invisible in a crude sense, but gone completely, as if it had never been there at all. Delegates searched the void with their eyes, but nothing remained. Then, without warning, one of the shattered fragments of the Kalor asteroid exploded, struck by an unseen force. Another fragment vanished into dust. One after another, rocks shattered, destroyed by weapons no one could see. Then, slowly, the veil of shadows reappeared, glowing faintly before fading again. Gasps filled the chamber. Admiral Ellen whispered, her black eyes unreadable. "You cannot fight what you cannot find. You cannot win against what you cannot see." The silence that followed was heavy, for every fleet commander present knew the terror of an unseen foe. Rourke's expression did not change. The Sirath display. Next came the Sirath Confederacy. Their ships moved with slow, deliberate grace, heavy with strange machinery that pulsed with silver light. Their flagship, the Weight of Ages, carried devices that bent the fabric of space itself. Admiral Tyrolin raised his long arms, his crystal crown shimmering like stars. Why strike with fire or shadow when the universe itself obeys your command? The Weight of Ages activated its engines. Space rippled around it as if the void itself bent inward. A nearby moonlet, a rock drifting in silence for millions of years, trembled. Slowly at first, then faster, the moonlet cracked apart, its fragments pulled inward by an unseen hand. Within minutes, the moonlet was gone, crushed into dust and drawn into a tight sphere that glowed with heat. Delegates stared in awe. To command gravity itself was no simple trick. Tyrolin's voice was soft, but it carried. "Stars pull on planets. Planets pull on moons. We pull on all." The chamber filled with uneasy silence. The Sirath power was subtle yet overwhelming, like the slow weight of mountains. Still, Rourke stood as he had before, calm, unmoved. The Volnari display. Finally, it was the turn of the Volnari hierarchy. Their warships, great and heavy, lined up in perfect formation. Their flagship, the Iron Will, stood at the center like a mountain of metal. Admiral Varkesh stepped forward, his voice booming. "Tricks of flesh, fire, shadow, and weight may amuse you, but none can match the voice of iron. None can stand against the roar of guns." At his signal, the Volnari fleet opened fire. Thousands of railguns and missile batteries spoke at once. The void lit up with streaks of silver, every shot slamming into a nearby planetoid. The surface of the planetoid broke apart. Craters spread like wounds, rock turned to dust. In moments, the planetoid was shattered into fragments, drifting apart in silence. Varkesh laughed, his voice filling the chamber. "This is true power. Not tricks, not whispers, but firepower. The hierarchy rules through strength, and none shall deny it." Delegates cheered, some in fear, some in admiration. The display was loud, bright, undeniable. And still, Rourke stood silent. The chamber of judgment. The demonstrations were done. The void of Vera 9 now held shattered asteroids, drifting dust, and silent wreckage, all proof of the power of the 5 great empires. The admirals stood tall, their pride glowing brighter than the pale star outside. Each believed their fleet unmatched. Each believed their empire supreme. Admiral Zyrek spoke first, his mandibles clicking. "Life endures. Sun can outlast the Thrix." Admiral Sarak raised her jeweled claws. "Endurance means nothing before fire. The Kalor burn all." Admiral Ellen whispered, her voice a shadow. "Fire cannot strike what it cannot find. Victory belongs to the unseen." Admiral Tyrolin's smooth voice followed. "Shadows vanish before gravity. We command the universe itself." Admiral Varkesh laughed last, his voice booming. "And what use are shadows, flames, or weight before the roar of 1,000 guns?" The chamber filled with their voices, each trying to rise above the others. Pride battled pride, glory against glory. Only one voice was missing. Speaker Avanar turned his silver gaze toward the human. "Commander Rourke, you have seen the power of the galaxy's greatest fleets. What will humanity show?" All eyes turned to him. The chamber grew silent. Rourke stood calm, his hands still behind his back. His face was unreadable, but his eyes held a steady fire. "If it is required," he said softly, "we will demonstrate." A ripple of amusement spread through the admirals. Some smirked, some laughed. What could humanity possibly display beside such giants? And yet, though they laughed, a quiet unease stirred in the hall, for the human's voice was calm, too calm, as if he carried no doubt at all. The time for humanity's answer had come. The chamber of the Hall of Concord was silent after the last demonstration. Fragments of shattered asteroids drifted in the void outside, silent witnesses to the powers of the 5 great empires. Delegates whispered among themselves, their voices low and uncertain. The Thrix had shown life that healed itself. The Kalor had burned stone to glass. The Druv had vanished into shadows. The Serath had crushed a moonlet into dust. The Volnari had filled space with the roar of 1,000 guns. Each display had been impressive. Each admiral had stood tall with pride. Now all eyes turned toward the lone human standing among them. Speaker Avenar's silver form shimmered as he spoke. Commander Elias Rourke of Earth, you have seen the strength of the 5 empires. Will humanity now display its own? The admirals smiled. Some smirked. Some laughed softly. They waited for the human to show his small frigate, or perhaps refuse altogether. Rourke did not move at once. His hands were still behind his back, his posture calm. At last he said, "Yes, we will demonstrate." The laughter grew louder. Admiral Varkesh's booming voice shook the chamber. "And what will you show us, human? A patrol ship with 2 small cannons? Perhaps a mining barge painted to look fierce?" Admiral Sarak hissed in amusement. "Maybe a single beam that glows faintly in the dark," Admiral Ellen whispered, her tone smooth as shadow. "Or perhaps nothing at all." Rourke did not answer their taunts. Instead, he touched a small device on his wrist. A single signal pulsed outward, quiet and invisible, yet carrying across the void. For a moment, nothing happened. The admirals chuckled. Delegates murmured. Some thought the human was only stalling. Then space itself seemed to ripple. The arrival far at the edge of the system where the pale light of Vera grew faint, something stirred. At first it looked like a shadow, darker than the dark around it. Slowly it grew, a shape moving silently across the void. The chamber grew quiet. Delegates pressed closer to the windows, trying to see. The shadow came nearer. It was a ship, not small, not fragile, not a patrol craft or a mining barge. It was enormous, larger than the Volnari dreadnought, yet smoother with no wasted shape. Its hull was silver gray, clean and unmarked, with no banners, no bright colors, no needless decoration. It moved with quiet grace, its engines almost silent, leaving only faint ripples in the void behind it. The ship entered the circle of fleets, and still it made no sound, no flash of power, no dramatic entrance. It simply was. The name glowed faintly on its side in clean letters. UHS Invictus. Gasps filled the chamber. The 5 admirals stared, their pride faltering for the first time. Admiral Varkesh spoke first, his booming voice less steady than before. "So, humanity does have a battleship, a fine vessel, yes, but size does not make power. What can this silent giant do?" Rourke's gaze remained calm. "You will see." The first demonstration, silence, the Invictus drifted into position. For a moment it did nothing. Delegates leaned forward, waiting. Admirals frowned. Then, without warning, the ship faded. Not in the crude way of a cloaking field. Not like the Druv ships shimmering half in and half out. The Invictus simply vanished as if it had never been there at all. No trace, no ripple, no shadow. Sensors across the station blinked in confusion. Admiral Ellen's black eyes widened. Her whisper carried more force than usual. "Impossible. I cannot see it. Even our shadow tech leaves traces, but this is nothing." Delegates gasped, searching the void. No one could find the ship. For long minutes it remained gone. Then just as quietly it reappeared in the exact same place, steady and calm as if it had never moved. Rourke's voice was quiet but clear. "Sometimes the most powerful presence is absence." The admirals exchanged uneasy glances. The second demonstration, precision, the Invictus turned toward a drifting asteroid fragment. Its hull remained silent, its weapons invisible until a faint hum echoed across the void. Then a railgun fired. The projectile moved at near light speed, unseen to the eye. In a blink, the asteroid split cleanly in 2, the cut so perfect it looked like glass sliced by a blade. Another shot fired. Another fragment split with the same precision. Again and again, each strike hit exactly the center, no wasted energy, no missed aim. Admiral Sarak's jeweled claws tightened. Such focus, such precision. Even our sun lances do not strike so cleanly, delegates murmured, impressed. The human ship had not shattered moons or burned worlds, yet its control was beyond question. Rourke spoke calmly. Power is not only destruction, it is the ability to choose exactly where to strike and where not to. The third demonstration, endurance at a signal from Speaker Avanar, the admirals were invited to test the human ship. Admiral Varkesh wasted no time. With a proud smile, he ordered one of his Volnari cruisers to fire a railgun round at the Invictus. The shot streaked across the void, striking the human hull with a flash of light. When the glow faded, the Invictus remained untouched. No mark, no dent, no scar. Its shields had absorbed the blast completely without even a flicker. The Volnari delegates shifted uneasily. Their guns had shattered planetoids, yet they had left no scratch on the human vessel. Rourke's voice was steady. Shields are not for show. They are for survival. Admiral Tyrolin frowned, his crystal crown dimming. The fourth demonstration, awareness, then came the next display. The Invictus extended faint signals, invisible to the eye but clear on the monitors. One by one, the ship's systems locked onto every vessel in the system. On the viewing screens, markers appeared. Every Thrix bioship, every Kalor dreadnought, every Druv Phantom, every Cyrath gravity cruiser, every Volnari gunship, all were targeted at once. Thousands of ships. Everyone tracked, everyone locked, everyone under the gaze of the Invictus. Gasps filled the chamber. Admirals stiffened. Never had they seen a system so fast, so complete, so precise. Admiral Xyrix clicked his mandibles in disbelief. To track so many at once, no fleet in the galaxy has such eyes. Rourke's gaze was calm. Eyes are more powerful than claws. If you can see everything, nothing can surprise you. The admirals fell into uneasy silence. The fifth demonstration, the leap. Finally, the Invictus prepared for its last display. Its engines glowed faintly, though not like fire or plasma. Instead, the space around it bent, rippling like water. In an instant, the ship vanished. Delegates gasped. They searched the void. Then, suddenly, it appeared again, far across the system, near the very edge of sight. A moment later, it vanished again, reappearing behind the Volnari fleet, then again, this time near the Thrix ships. Then once more directly above the Hall of Concord, so close its vast hull filled the chamber windows like a silver wall. Delegates cried out in shock. Admirals stared, speechless. The Invictus had not simply moved. It had leaped. Not through normal space, not even through known warp drives. It had bent space itself, stepping from point to point as if the void were nothing more than a hallway. The ship returned to its place, steady and calm, as if nothing had happened. Rourke's voice was soft. Distance means nothing when you understand how to walk across it. The silence after. The chamber was still. The admirals, once so proud, stood without words. Their boasts seemed small now, their displays faint shadows compared to what they had witnessed. Admiral Varkesh, who had laughed the loudest, said nothing. His bronze skin looked pale in the chamber, light. Admiral Sarak's jeweled claws trembled, faintly. Admiral Ellen's whispers were silent. Admiral Tyrolin's crown dimmed. Admiral Xyrix's carapace shifted in slow waves of gray and white, colors of awe and caution. No one laughed at humanity now. Speaker Avanar's silver form shone brighter. His voice carried softly, yet it filled the hall. The demonstration is complete. The power of Earth has been shown. Let all who watched remember this day. The delegates bowed their heads, some in respect, some in fear, some in both. Rourke stood as he had always stood, calm, steady, silent. He had not raised his voice. He had not spoken with pride. He had only let the Invictus speak for him, and its voice was enough. The truth beneath later, when the chamber began to empty, the 5 admirals remained together. They spoke quietly, each shaken in their own way. Admiral Varkesh broke the silence first, though his voice no longer boomed. All these years we thought Earth weak. Yet they hid this, Admiral Sarak hissed softly. Why hide such power? Why not show it before? Admiral Ellen whispered. Perhaps they did not wish to boast. Perhaps they feared what boasting might bring. Admiral Tyrolin's voice was low. Or perhaps they fight wars we do not see. Wars that require such strength. Admiral Xyrix clicked slowly, his carapace flashing cautious colors. Life endures. But humanity prepares. The admirals exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time, they realized the truth. Humanity had not been absent out of weakness. Humanity had simply been quiet, and now silence was no longer possible. The Hall of Concord was still. For a long while after the Invictus completed its demonstration, no one spoke. The delegates sat in silence, their eyes wide, their voices caught in their throats. Even the 5 great admirals who had entered the chamber filled with fire and pride stood wordless now. Outside the windows, the human battleship waited. It did not glow with pride or roar with sound. It stood calm, its silver-gray hull catching the faint light of Vera's star. It seemed less a machine and more a presence, a silent guardian, watching with patient eyes. Commander Elias Rourke stood as he always had, hands behind his back, posture straight, gaze steady. He did not boast. He did not smile. He did not ask for praise. It was the silence that made the greatest noise. The breaking of pride Admiral Varkesh was the first to move. The mighty Volnari, whose laughter had shaken the chamber earlier, now stepped forward more slowly. His bronze skin, once bright with confidence, seemed dim under the chamber's light. He stared at Rourke, then at the Invictus beyond the window. His booming voice was softer now, almost respectful. This ship, this Invictus, it is more than firepower. It is more than strength. It is control. It is restraint. No fleet of the Volnari can match it. His words surprised many. Never before had a Volnari admiral spoken with such humility. Admiral Sarak of the Kalor Dominion raised her jeweled claws, her eyes glowing faintly. She had watched as the Invictus's railguns cut stone as neatly as glass, more precise than even her sun lances. She spoke with quiet disbelief. Your ship does not waste energy. It strikes only where needed. Even our most advanced lances cannot achieve such balance. Tell me, human, how long did it take to reach this? Rourke met her gaze calmly. Many years. Many struggles. Longer than you might guess. Admiral Ellen of the Drove shifted, her pale form blending faintly with the shadows of the chamber. She had been certain that no one could vanish as her fleet did. Yet the Invictus had done so completely, leaving no trace. Her whisper was low, almost like wind in a cave. You disappeared. Not hidden, not blurred. You were gone. Even our shadows cannot do this. What enemies drove you to build such silence? Rourke's eyes softened for the first time, as if remembering something far away. Enemies that are not here. Threats you would not wish to meet. The chamber grew colder at his words. Admiral Tiralan of the Sireth folded his long arms, his crystal crown dimming. He had always spoken of gravity as if it were the ultimate weapon. Yet the Invictus had leaped across the void, bending space itself, ignoring distance as though it were an illusion. His voice was low, almost reverent. We bend weight. You bend space. Tell me, human, what do you call this gift? Rourke's answer was simple. We call it a drive of necessity. It is not a gift. It is a tool. It allows us to endure. Admiral Xerix of the Thrix was last. His carapace shifted through slow colors of gray and green, thoughtful and calm. His voice clicked like tapping stones. We heal, we regrow. We endure. Yet I see now we endure in the present. You endure into the future. You build not to show but to survive what may come. The words struck deep into the chamber. The delegates' murmurs around the hall. The lesser delegates began to whisper. The humans, they are not weak. They were never weak. They were only quiet. If one ship holds such power, how many more do they have? Perhaps only one. Perhaps many. Uncertainty spread like fire through dry grass. Some voices carried fear. Others carried respect. All carried wonder. Speaker Avanar, whose silver form gleamed softly, raised his hand. The murmurs faded. His voice filled the chamber, steady and calm. Today the galaxy has witnessed a truth. The 5 empires have shown their pride, but humanity has shown its strength in silence. Let it be known that Earth is not absent, not weak, not forgotten. They stand among us, the words echoed like a judgment. None could deny them. A conversation. After when the session ended, the admirals lingered. Pride no longer filled their voices. Instead, curiosity and caution guided their words. Admiral Varkesh approached Rourke first. His voice was quieter now, though still strong. You could have destroyed us all. Yet you did not. Why? Rourke answered without hesitation. Because destruction is not our purpose. We build ships not to conquer, but to ensure we remain. Admiral Sarak tilted her head. You speak of survival often. What have you faced, human, that makes survival your creed? Rourke's eyes grew distant, as if seeing shadows no one else could see. We have faced storms of silence. We have faced darkness where no star shines. We have faced enemies that leave no wreckage, only emptiness. We learned that to survive is the first victory. All other victories come after. The admirals listened in silence. None mocked him now. Admiral Ellen's whisper carried a rare note of respect. Perhaps we have been proud too long. Perhaps we forgot that survival is the beginning of all power. Admiral Tyrolen's smooth voice followed. We command the pull of stars, yet we may learn from you. Perhaps endurance matters more than display. Admiral Xyrix clicked slowly, his carapace glowing faintly. Life endures. Humanity prepares. Together, perhaps we endure longer. Rourke inclined his head but said nothing more. He had already spoken enough. The Invictus waits outside. The Invictus remained still. It did not leave. It did not fire again. It simply waited, silent and calm, as though watching over the fleets around it. Some delegates dared to imagine what it might be like if humanity chose to conquer. The thought chilled them. If one ship could silence the pride of 5 empires, what could a fleet of such ships do? Others imagined what it might mean to have humanity as an ally. The thought brought comfort. No one spoke these thoughts aloud, but every mind carried them. The human truth. As the summit drew to a close, Speaker Avanar offered each admiral a final word. Each spoke of their pride, but their tones were changed. Admiral Varkesh: strength is loud, but I see now that silence may be stronger. Admiral Sarak: the brightest fire burns out. Precision endures. Admiral Elen: shadows fear what they cannot hide from. Admiral Tyrolen: gravity bends, but space can be walked across. Admiral Xyrix: life heals, but preparation survives. Finally, Speaker Avanar turned to Rourke. And what of humanity? What will you say to the galaxy today? Every eye turned to him. Every voice stilled. Rourke's answer was quiet, yet it carried across the chamber stronger than thunder. We do not build to impress. We do not build to boast. We build to endure. That is humanity's truth. The words lingered long after they were spoken. The closing of the summit. When the summit ended, fleets departed one by one. The Thrick ships glowed as they stretched their living wings. The Kalor ships burned with faint fire. The Druv ships shimmered in and out of sight. The Sirath cruisers bent faint ripples in the void. The Volnari dreadnoughts moved in heavy silence, but every admiral left with new thoughts. Pride was no longer as heavy in their steps. Respect had replaced it. The Invictus remained last. It did not leave until all others were gone. When it finally turned and drifted into the darkness of space, the Hall of Concord seemed emptier, as if something greater had departed, the legacy of the day. In the weeks that followed, stories spread across the galaxy. Delegates told tales of the silent ship that outshone 5 empires. Some said it was indestructible. Some said it carried weapons that could split stars. Others whispered that it was the only one of its kind. No one knew the full truth, but all agreed on one thing. Humanity could no longer be ignored. No longer were they seen as a young species, weak and unimportant. No longer would their small colonies be dismissed. The galaxy had witnessed the Invictus. And in that moment, the galaxy had changed. Commander Rourke on board the Invictus, Commander Elias Rourke stood once again at the window, watching the stars drift by. His reflection gazed back at him. A simple man with gray at his temples, ordinary in every way but one. His eyes carried stories no one else knew. Stories of darkness, of storms, of survival. He spoke softly, though no one else was in the room. They have seen us now. Perhaps they will understand. Perhaps they will be ready when the time comes. He closed his eyes, and for a moment the silence of space seemed to press close around him. Then he opened them again. The stars stretched out before him, endless and waiting. The Invictus moved on, calm and silent, a shadow of steel and will, and the galaxy watched,